excuses every time. At one point, he'll tell her he's on a movie set and can't talk. Knowing how movie stars are busy, especially when on set, Anne understands and settles for texts. Finally, Anne gets what she wanted when one day out of the blues, Brad Pitt proposes to her via texts. After her failed marriage, Anne is excited to find After all, who could say no to Brad Pitt? Here's the thing, Jane's son isn't really Brad Pitt. It's a bunch of scammers trying to love scam her. But Anne is in love and can't see that she's being scammed. Plus, she doesn't know anything about the deep fakes, which makes it easier for the scammers who are believed to be raw Nigeria to play with her emotions. One day, Anne wakes up to a beautiful message from the love of her life, who wants to send her some luxury gifts. He sends her a photo of some expensive perfumes, jewelries, clothes, and other accessories, which he has purchased and sent to her. After a few days, Anne gets an email from a shipping company claiming that her parcel has delayed due to an import tax of about $5,000. Anne texts Brad and asks, why can't he pay the import tax? After all, he is a multi-millionaire movie star. Brad texts her claiming that his bank accounts have been frozen due to her publicized divorce from Angelina Jolie. Funny enough, Anne believes him and she pays the tax, but her gifts don't arrive. When she asks, Brad says that they may have gotten lost while in transit. Brad continues asking cash from her, coming up with many excuses, and she keeps sending him cash. At this point, her divorce is finalized. This is when she makes a mistake by sharing the information with fake Brad Pitt. These scammers get excited, and after a few days, Brad drops a bomb on her. The fake Brad tells Anne that he has cancer, which breaks her heart. Since his account is still frozen, he cannot afford to pay for the hospital bills. Brad sends her a picture of him at the hospital undergoing treatments and asks her if she could help him with the bill. And once his accounts are unfrozen, he will pay her back. Even fake Brad's doctor emails her the details of the treatment and claims that he might not survive without the treatment. He even sends her his credentials and receipts for the procedure. Therefore, Anne, who doesn't want to lose the love of her life, transfers the cash, but they don't stop there. Fake Brad Pitt continues sending photos of him in the hospital undergoing the treatment and surgery. From here, Brad's medical bills keep coming to her email. Since she doesn't want him to die, Anne keeps paying the medical bills. One day, Anne gets shocking news about Brad Pitt. Well, the real one. She goes online and finds a video of Brad with his girlfriend, Inez. The media shares some adorable photos of the couple confirming that Inez is indeed his real girlfriend. Anne gets mad and confronts Brad, who denies everything and tries to convince her that it's a deep, fake video. To prove his point, he sends her an AI-generated news video confirming that Brad is dating Anne and not Inez. This calms her down for the time being, but with time she keeps seeing media coverage of Brad and his new girlfriend. That's when it dawns on her that she isn't dating Brad Pitt and maybe she has been dealing with scammers. By this time, the medical bills and import taxes have accumulated to over $865,000. This breaks Anne's heart, and she becomes depressed after losing what she wanted in the divorce settlement. But then, an FBI agent calls her and tells her that the scammers are Nigerians. They have been apprehended. On top of that, she can get all her money back. However, they tell her that she needs to pay $5,000 in Bitcoin for her cash to be released. At this point, Anne is fed up and realized that the scammers are trying their last shot to get some cash from her and calls the police. And as of now, her case is being investigated. We'll update you when and if the scammers are caught.
This woman, her name is Portia Rowland. She has just been shot on her driveway while walking her car. Portia was a mechanic for Metropolitan Sewer District who loved working with her hands, and a pillar of the community who never met a stranger. Portia lived a great life and was lucky enough to meet her living girlfriend Sarah Schaefer. Before her demise, she was preparing to get engaged to her girlfriend, but what she didn't know was her love for Sarah would result in her demise. Let's start from the beginning. They had been together for even more years. The couple were blessed with 3 children aged 14, 12, and 7. But after a few years of marriage, Sammy became abusive and would put his wife through hell every day. Hoping that he would change, Sarah stayed with him for more years, but he became even more abusive, especially when drunk. Sarah couldn't take it anymore, therefore she moved out and filed for divorce. This left Sammy devastated, especially the thought of being away from his children. Sammy was pissed off and against it, so he tried to delay the process with the hope that they would rekindle their love. On the other hand, Sarah met Portia, and she fell in love with her. Portia used to say that Sarah's smile always lit up the room. The 2 lovers started dating, and within no time they moved in together. However, Sammy was against it. He even sent texts and warning to Portia, telling her to leave his wife alone. Initially, they were just threats, but everything changed when he noticed that they had moved in and were in love. The fact that Portia was planning on getting engaged to Sarah may have worsened the situation. It may have angered him and made him start plotting her demise. But Sammy has never murdered anyone, so he came up with a diabolical plan to end Portia's life and contacted Shaw, who said he knew someone who can do it for a good price. The 2 agreed on $10,000, which he would share with the killer. Now the killer in question is Gary D. Johnson, Shaw's cousin, who had prior murder history. Additionally, he has a conviction for aggravated criminal sexual abuse causing bodily harm, for which he is registered as a sexual predator in Illinois. Shaw drove the getaway car and they waited for Portia outside her home. That morning, Portia came out to warm up her car as usual, and that's when Johnson pulled the trigger and ended her life. After killing her, Johnson fled the scene and the 2 changed their clothes before going to a casino. According to court documents, Schaefer paid a total of $10,000 to 2 individuals, $6,500 to Gary D. Johnson, who allegedly carried out the shooting, and $3,500 to Marty D. Shaw, who served as the driver. Johnson reportedly confessed to being hired for the shooting. Prosecutors have presented evidence suggesting that Schaefer had a personal grievance against Roland, who was in a relationship with his estranged wife, Sarah Schaefer. This alleged motive, combined with financial transactions and confessions from the co-accused, forms the basis of the charges against Schaefer. All 3 individuals, Schaefer, Johnson, and Shaw, have been charged with first-degree murder and remain in custody awaiting trial. We'll keep you updated on the progress of their case. Demetrius Fraser became the 4th person to be executed using nitrogen gas for murdering a woman over 3 decades ago. Demetrius was the 3rd person to be executed in 2025 following the lethal injection in Texas on Wednesday the same week, and another one the week before in South Carolina. Let's start from the beginning. The year is 1991, and Demetrius, a 19-years-old boy, was passing through some apartment buildings in Birmingham when he noticed that the light were on in one of the ground floor apartments. He proceeded to break into the house through the window. Once inside, he searched for cash in the house, but only managed to get $10 or $5. He went to the bedroom where he found Pauline Brown, a 41-year-old woman, sleeping. Fraser woke her up and demanded cash, and she gave him the $80 she had in her purse. Demetrius then threatened her with a gun and sexually assaulted her. Pauline begged for her life, but Fraser shot her in the back of her head anyway before leaving the apartment to see if anyone had heard the gunshot. Once he was satisfied that no one had heard the gunshot, he returned to Pauline's house to look for more cash and even ate some food before leaving. After this incident, Fraser relocated to Detroit, Michigan, where he confined Crystal Kendrick, a 14-year-old runaway girl, in an abandoned home. During an attempt to rape her, Demetrius shot her at the back of her head while she tries to escape. Fraser was listed as the main suspect. After discovering that he was the main suspect, he went on a run but was captured on the same month. During an interrogating, Demetrius confessed to murdering Pauline Brown in Alabama. The next year, he was given multiple life sentences for murdering Crystal and several other offences. He was later convicted of capital murder for killing Pauline and sentenced to death in 1996. He spent 18 years at the Alger Correctional Facility in Michigan before being transferred to Holman Correctional Facility in 2011, a home for Alabama's death row. During his time in Michigan correctional facilities, he tried and appealed the death penalty several times, but his appeals were rejected. He exhausted his appeals in 2012, and 2 years later the Attorney General filed a motion for scheduling the execution dates for 9 inmates, including Fraser. This was after the state approved a new lethal injection protocol. His mother even unsuccessfully tried to convince the court to send Fraser back to Michigan, where he was serving a life sentence. Michigan doesn't have a death penalty. Fraser and other death row inmates fought the lethal injection protocol and even proposed hanging or firing squad to a federal judge. But everything changed in 2018 when the lawmakers legalized execution by nitrogen hypoxia, with Fraser being one of the few people who chose this method. He later tried to block his execution through this method, claiming that it wasn't fast as he was promised, but his appeal was rejected. This is after the state executed 3 inmates using this method in 2024. Fraser was executed on February 6, 2025 in Alabama. For more stories like this one, please hit the subscribe button.
To see her alive in my arms, it was a gift from God.
These were the words of a happy and grateful father who found his daughter who had been missing for almost a month. Frank Chabasi found his daughter in a huge boat called the Phoenix that was docked near a local fish market in Islip, Brooklyn. This resulted in the capture of 12 people who are charged with raping and human trafficking. But how did he find his daughter, and what happened to her while in captivity? Who were the 12 people who took part in her kidnapping? Let's find out. Emma Ray's story begins on December 9th in Patchogue, on the eastern shores of Long Island. She was last seen at her home on the driveway standing barefooted. According to the New York Post, it was Alton Harold who picked her from her home and took her to an abandoned home 3 miles away in Bellport. Harold has since been charged with first-degree kidnapping and could face life in prison. At the time when she was missing, most people branded her a runaway and kept leaving stupid comments on Frank's Facebook page.
Emma was being held against her will.
But he refuted the claims, saying that his daughter may have left the house for stupid reasons, but she is not a runaway. Plus, child trafficking is real and parents should protect their daughters and even sons. Emma Ray's dad was very vocal during the hard times, and he shared numerous videos on his search for his daughter.
Morning, guys. Today's day 24. Hate to report that there's 0 signs of my daughter.
Emma Ray had a history of drug use and had just been released from a juvenile detention with a GPS ankle bracelet. But her father believed she had not escaped from home. He accepted the fact that Emma Ray may have entered the car willingly, but he believed that she'd been groomed or coerced into it. This is actually the case, since she had been chatting with someone online who convinced her to meet up. Plus, when she disappeared, the GPS ankle bracelet was found a block from her house. So how did he find his daughter? Well, during the tough time when most of the world had given up on her, Frank was busy looking for her daughter. He kept sharing his progress with everyone on his Facebook page.
Hello, guys. Today is day 22. Unfortunately, Emma Ray is still missing.
But everything changed on January 3rd, when he got an anonymous call from a woman who told him the whereabouts of his daughter. Frank rushed to the islip where he found Emma Ray in a yacht docked at the Whitecap Marina. Frank got an anonymous tip from a woman who is now charged along with the other suspects with crimes ranging from sexual assault, rape, and kidnap to endangerment of a minor and sex trafficking. Making the issue worse, a 42-year-old employee of a children's mental health facility where she had been sent to recover from her ordeal was also caught and accused of having sexual contact with her. Deshawn McLean was charged on Tuesday after the police investigated a claim from Emory and watched the surveillance footage. Other details of what happened to her after being kidnapped emerged through interviews with Frank, police statements, and legal proceedings. According to these sources, after leaving her home, Emory got into a vehicle with 35-year-old Alton Harrell, who she had met online. Shortly after that, her ankle monitor was removed. According to the prosecutors, Harrell kept her in an abandoned building in Bellport for about 24 hours. Apparently, Harrell had been in contact with her since she was 13 years old, and based on their texts, he was aware of her age. Over the next few days, she was involved with other guys, including Robert Eccleston, 61, Daniel Burke, 63, and Kevin McDonald, 20. These individuals took her to a trailer home and then a garrow and held her in places where she was less likely to be found. From December 13th to when her dad rescued her, she was in a 56-foot yacht known as the Phoenix with a 64-year-old drifter known as Francis Buckheit. Francis kept her behind netting in his boat and out of sight. He told her that he planned on taking her to the Carolinas. Buckheit is currently held without bail, and the charges against him include endangering the welfare of a minor, kidnapping, and rape. During her time at the yacht, she met 52-year-old Jacqueline Comiskey and 34-year-old Elizabeth Hunter, who took advantage of her. Comiskey even offered her to 47-year-old Bunnis Knight in exchange for drugs. Knight, Hunter, and Comiskey have also been caught and faced serious sexual offense charges. Frank told the Post it was Jacqueline Comiskey who tipped him off to Amare's whereabouts. Once at the marina, he met her and an unknown male companion with her daughter, who appeared out of it and dehydrated. Comiskey admitted she had driven Amaray around the night before, which led him to believe that she was involved in the kidnapping and refused to give her the reward cash. For now, Emaray's family is happy to have her back and helping her get through the tough ordeal she went through. On the other hand, the case against the 12 suspects is still proceeding, with the prosecutors seeking maximum penalties for them. So shout out to Super Dad from Long Island. For more true crime stories like this one, please hit the subscribe button. The French Court of Appeal ordered a police officer to pay €1,000 or about $1,000 after he described a sexual assault victim as a whore. And let's start from the beginning. This beautiful woman running for her life, let's call her Anne, has just been sexually assaulted. Her night started great with her friends picking her up for a night out. They went to a local club and had several drinks, but on her way back home, she was attacked by an unknown assailant who sexually assaulted her. Later, she went to the police and reported her case before going to the hospital for medical checkup. The next day, a policeman called her and asked her to come back and finish filing her paperwork. But after he finished leaving the message, he started insulting her. The police officer called her a whore thrice. Here is the thing though, the police officer didn't hang up the call after leaving the message and the insults got recorded. After hearing the message, Anne was heartbroken, especially since she was expecting the police officer to be understanding and not insult her in the process. Therefore, she filed her complaint on February 2022 at a Paris police station. The case sparked indignation from activists who said it reflected how many police officers treated victims of sexual violence. This has played a major role in reducing the number of sexual assault victims who actually report their cases. In fact, over 80,000 women get sexually assaulted every year in France, but only 10% file a complaint. This incident shocked the country, resulting in the then Interior Minister, Gerald Darmanin, saying that the 33-year-old officer should be fired. The policeman was charged with non-public insult because of gender. But a French court cleared the policeman of criminal liability in January 2024. During the trial, the officer apologized and said he had to beg Darmanin to keep his job. The sexual assault victim then appealed against the decision, asking judicial authorities to recognize the officer's misconduct. Finally, after almost 3 years, the Paris Court of Appeals sided with the woman on January 30th, 2025, and said the policeman should pay her €1,000. So tell me guys, was this a fair ruling? Especially since we can only turn to the police when assaulted. For more true crime stories like this one, please subscribe to our channel.
This is not, this whole situation is just unreal.
Hi guys, today I have a weird one, even for my standards. Imagine you have just cremated or buried your loved one in a green funeral home, and you even have an urn full of their ashes, only to discover that their body has been decomposing in a funeral home for years. Well, that was a reality for Christina Page in 2023. Christina believed that she had an urn filled with her son's ashes in her home, only to discover that his body was never cremated. In fact, it has been decomposing on the floor of the funeral home atop other bodies for 4 years.
My son has been laying there rotting for 4 years.
What surprised her the most is the Return to Nature funeral home had a 5 rating on Yelp, but their services were questionable. Let's start from the beginning. Have you ever heard of green burials? This is an alternative form of burial that doesn't allow dead bodies to decompose naturally in the ground. It focuses on minimizing environmental impact by avoiding embalming chemicals, metal caskets, and concrete vaults. Instead, bodies are typically placed in biodegradable materials like simple wooden caskets, wicker baskets, or cloth shrouds, allowing for natural decomposition and returning nutrients to the earth. The green burial businesses have been challenging the funeral industry in the last decade to be more sustainable. Green burials are increasingly popular among eco-friendly families, but one establishment surprised the world back in 2023. The Return to Nature made people question the government's control over funeral homes. Since 2017, people have entrusted their loved ones' remains to John and Carrie Halford, the owners of Return to Nature. These eco-friendly families believed that their loved ones' remains were decomposing naturally, and some had even received the ashes of their loved ones, which helped them honor and remember their loved ones. But in early October, a stomach-turning odor began to permeate the neighborhood surrounding the funeral home in Penrose, Colorado. Concerned residents alerted local authorities, prompting an investigation. But what they discovered would bring the Halfords' clients grief for the second devastating time. Upon entering the premises, officials were met with a horrifying scene: the decomposing remains of approximately 190 individuals, some dating back to 2019, stacked haphazardly within the facility. The sheriff called the FBI agents, who were surprised to find the facility's once white floor had turned brown due to the decomposition fluid. The floors were covered with maggots and flies. While testifies, an FBI agent said that the bodies found were of fetuses, infants, and adults. Some bodies were not fully covered, while in some cases 2 or more bodies shared a bag. They also found a concrete mix and bone grinder in the room. The discovery ignited a frantic investigation which involved using fingerprints, dental records, and in some cases DNA. There were also efforts to make contact with the survivors of the dead, after it became evident that the remains each family was given could not have been their loved one. The owners, John and Carey Holford, were conspicuously absent during the initial stages of the investigation. When contacted, John claimed he had been using the facility to practice taxidermy, acknowledging the potential issues this posed. He agreed to meet with investigators but failed to appear, raising further suspicions. As the investigation deepened, it became evident that the Holfords had deceived numerous families. Many had received what they believed were the ashes of their loved one. However, these were later found to be substitutes, possibly even dry concrete. The emotional toll on the families was immeasurable. Financial records revealed that the Holfords had been misusing funds, which included the COVID-19 fund for personal luxuries, including expensive vehicles, vacations, and even cosmetic procedures. Federal prosecutors said the couple operated 2 fraudulent schemes that together netted just under $1 million. On one hand, they funneled $882,300 from a COVID-19 relief fund for businesses. On top of that, they victimized customers who paid for their loved ones' remains to be treated legally and with respect. Their business faced mounting debts, missed tax payments, and lawsuits over unpaid bills, painting a picture of financial mismanagement and fraud. The couple was eventually apprehended in Oklahoma in November 2023 while trying to flee the country. The two are facing multiple charges including abuse of a corpse, theft, money laundering, and forgery. The case shed light on Colorado's lax regulations concerning funeral homes, prompting legislative action to enforce stricter oversight and routine inspections. In October 2024, John and Carey Holford pleaded guilty to federal fraud charges, admitting to defrauding customers and misusing pandemic relief funds. As of February 2025, John and Carey Holford, former owners of the Return to Nature funeral home in Penrose, Colorado, are incarcerated following their guilty pleas to multiple charges. Their sentencing is scheduled for April 18, 2025, where John faces a proposed 20-year prison term and Carey faces between 15 to 20 years. In August 2024, a civil judgment ordered the Holfords to pay $950 million to the victims' families, though this amount is largely symbolic due to their financial insolvency. We will keep you updated on the outcome of their case. If you don't want to miss our daily true crime stories, please subscribe to our channel.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Christopher Dunch.
If you're a dark coper, white knuckler, or an adrenaline junkie, then you may have watched Dr. Death. Well, anyone who loves an exceptional crime story has watched this TV series when it premiered on Peacock back in 2021. The series dramatizes the true story of Christopher Dunch, an American surgeon who mutilated his patients, and Paolo Macchiarini, an Italian surgeon who experimented on his patients. These gruesome cases left the world in shock after discovering that the doctor who has been trained to save lives is taking them, and in the worst way possible. After their conviction, most of us thought that was the end of Dr. Deaths, but that's not the case. The latest suspect is an unnamed 40-year-old doctor who was arrested in August 2024 in Berlin. For the sake of our story, let's call him Dr. Keller. The 40-year-old physician was a respected member of a palliative care team dedicated to providing comfort to those in their final stages of life. His demeanor was calm, his reputation impeccable, and his patients trusted him implicitly. Between September 2021 and the summer of 2024, a series of mysterious deaths began to occur among his patients. The victims, ranging from a 25-year-old woman to elderly individuals in their 70s and 80s, were found lifeless in their homes. In several instances, fires had been deliberately set at the scenes, seemingly to obliterate any evidence of wrongdoing. Authorities were initially perplexed, attributing the deaths to natural causes and the fires to tragic accidents. The turning point came on June 11, 2024, when firefighters responded to a blaze at the apartment of an 87-year-old woman. They managed to rescue her, but she succumbed to her injuries shortly after. Suspicion grew as investigators noticed a pattern. Dr. Keller was the attending physician for all the deceased, and the fires appeared too coincidental. In August 2024, he was arrested on suspicion of manslaughter, arson, and attempted arson related to 4 deaths. As the investigation deepened, authorities exhumed bodies and conducted thorough forensic examinations, uncovering evidence that linked him to a total of 10 murders. The victims had been administered lethal mixtures of drugs, and in 5 cases, fires were set to conceal the crimes. Prosecutors were baffled by the lack of a clear motive. Dr. Keller had no apparent personal vendetta or financial gain from these deaths. His actions were described as fitting the legal definition of lust for murder, suggesting a disturbing compulsion to kill without reason. The revelation sent shockwaves through the medical community and the public. A man sworn to heal had become a harbinger of death, betraying the trust placed in him by his patients and society. The case recalls that of Niels Hogel, a notorious German nurse who was sentenced in 2019 to life in prison for murdering 85 patients in his care. Hogel, believed to be Germany's most prolific serial killer, who used lethal injections between 2000 and 2005 before he was caught in the act. In a more recent case in Germany, a 27-year-old male nurse was sentenced to life in prison in 2023 for murdering 2 patients by deliberately administering unprescribed drugs. The nurse, identified as Mario G., was also found guilty on 6 counts of attempted murder. In the UK, Lucy Letby, a neonatal nurse, is serving a life sentence for murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 6 others. However, earlier this year, a panel of experts disputed the medical evidence used to convict Letby. These cases serve as a haunting reminder that evil can sometimes wear the most unexpected faces. As of now, his case is still going on, and in keeping up with Germany's privacy rules, his name has not been disclosed to the public. We will keep you updated on the outcome of his case proceedings. For more true crime stories like this one, please subscribe to our channel. A United Kingdom dad who ran over his 3-year-old boy was seen fist-pumping and celebrating in court after being acquitted of manslaughter. The incident that resulted in the death of Albie Speakman occurred in 2022 in Greater Manchester Farm. Let's start from the beginning. Neil Speakman, who operated a wood chip and log business from his farm in Bury, Greater Manchester, separated from Leah Bridge after their son was born. Therefore, they shared custody of young Albie Speakman. Albie would stay with his mother during the week and visit his dad on alternate weekends on his farm. Their arrangement worked perfectly until July 16, 2022, when the tragic death of Albie occurred. Neil loves his son, and they usually spent weekends on his farm, playing with his 2 family dogs. But there are times when he would leave Albie playing with his pets while he worked on the farm. On this tragic day, Neil was working on his farm while Albie was playing nearby with his dogs. As Neil reversed the telehandler, Albie tragically ended up in its path and was run over. After discovering he had reversed into Albie, Neil ran into the house and asked his partner to call an ambulance. Unfortunately, Albie was pronounced dead at the scene by paramedics. During his hearing, the court was told, he said something like, "I caught him with the tractor, I got him." Mr. Speakman had Albie in his arms and was in a state of panic. In an interview with the police, Neil said that the 3-year-old knew better than to go near anything. He knew he weren't stupid. It's a farm, isn't it? It's not a playground, and Albie knew it weren't. He knew his boundaries. He knew where he could go and where he couldn't go, he said. The case went to court, where prosecutors accused Neil Speakman of gross negligence manslaughter, arguing that he had acted irresponsibly by reversing a large vehicle without ensuring his son was at a safe distance. On top of that, he drove the defective telehandler which he was not trained to use. They claimed he created a serious and obvious risk of death. However, the defense countered that the telehandler had a restricted rear view, making it impossible for Neil to see Albie in time. They emphasized that the accident, while devastating, was not a case of criminal negligence but rather a tragic misjudgment. After deliberation, the jury found Neil not guilty of gross negligence manslaughter. When the verdict was read, Neil was seen pumping his fist in relief, a reaction that stirred controversy given the gravity of the case. What do you think? Was this a fair ruling? For more videos like this one, please subscribe to our channel. A Texas man convicted for suffocating and beating a local pastor in his own church during a robbery in 2011 has been executed. The execution of Sevon Nelson is the second scheduled execution in the country in 2025 by lethal injection. So how did Nelson find himself in this predicament, and what were his final words? Let's find out. Stephen LaWayne Nelson was born on February 18, 1987, in Ada, Oklahoma. His early years were marred by severe neglect and abuse. His mother often left him alone for days, and his father was largely absent and abusive when present. By the age of 3, Nelson exhibited signs of distress, once attempting to set his mother's bed on fire. His encounters with the law began at 6, involving property crimes, burglaries, thefts, and aggravated assaults. Despite interventions like counseling and probation, his delinquent behavior persisted, leading to his incarceration in high-risk juvenile detention centers. In his teenage years, Nelson's family relocated to Tarrant County, Texas. However, the change in environment did little to alter his trajectory. At 14, he faced charges for unauthorized use of a vehicle, burglary, and criminal trespassing, resulting in an indeterminate sentence at the Texas Youth Commission. Originally slated for 9 months, his stay extended to over 3.5 years due to repeated infractions. By 20, Nelson had been paroled twice, yet his criminal activities continued unabated. On March 3, 2011, Nelson entered the North Point Baptist Church in Arlington, Texas, with the intent to rob. Inside, he encountered Pastor Clint Dobson and Church Secretary Judy Elliott. Nelson brutally assaulted both. Pastor Dobson was beaten and suffocated with a plastic bag, leading to his death, while Elliott was severely beaten but survived. Nelson fled the scene with stolen items, including Dobson's laptop and Elliott's car keys and credit cards. He was later apprehended after using the stolen credit cards on a shopping spree. While awaiting trial in the Tarrant County Jail, Nelson's violent behavior persisted. On March 19, 2012, he allegedly murdered fellow inmate Jonathan Holden, a mentally ill prisoner. Nelson reportedly fashioned a noose from blankets, coerced Holden into a vulnerable position, and strangled him. Witnesses claimed Nelson celebrated afterward, displaying a disturbing lack of remorse. In October 2012, Nelson stood trial for the capital murder of Pastor Dobson. The prosecution presented compelling evidence, including bloodstains on Nelson's shoes matching the victims and possession of stolen items. Despite Nelson's claims that 2 accomplices were responsible for the murder, the jury found him guilty. During the sentencing phase, the prosecution highlighted Nelson's extensive criminal history and his violent conduct while incarcerated, including the alleged murder of Holden. The defense cited his traumatic upbringing and mental health issues as mitigating factors. Ultimately, Nelson was sentenced to death on October 16, 2012. After years of appeals, all of which were denied, Nelson's execution was scheduled. On February 5, 2025, at the Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville, Nelson was executed by lethal injection. In his final moments, he expressed love to his wife, stating, "I'm not scared, I'm at peace. Let's ride, Warden." He was pronounced dead at 6:50 p.m. The tragic trajectory of Stephen LaWayne Nelson's life underscores the profound impact of early childhood trauma and the challenges of breaking cycles of violence and criminal behavior.
That big smile.
A mum accused of killing her 3 young children, one after the other, was sentenced to a life in prison on Valentine's Day. Rachel suffocated 3 of her young kids and even confessed to singing a lullaby to them while killing them. On top of that, she placed her children's bodies on the couch to appear as they're asleep. Rachel Henry pleaded guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murders in Arizona in December, which saved her from possibility of a death penalty. So, how did she find herself in such a predicament, and what happened to her kids? Let's find out.
I won't ever get to see him smile, laugh. I won't ever get to teach him nothing.
In January 2020, a tragic incident unfolded in Phoenix, Arizona, involving 22-year-old Rachel Henry and her 3 young children, 3-year-old Zane, nearly 2-year-old Mariah, and 7-month-old Catalia. Henry, who had a history of substance abuse, was living with the children's father and their great-aunt at the time. On January 20th, 2020, the household seemed typical. However, beneath the surface, Henry was personal demons. According to she later conveys of unimaginable act. Henry heard Mariah while playing with her, tried to intervene by hitting at his mother. When the children's great-aunt returned home, Henry halted her actions. Later, she took Zane to a bedroom under the pretense of putting him down for a nap, sang him a lullaby, and smothered him as he fought back. Finally, she fed baby Catalia until she fell asleep, and then smothered her. After each act, Henry placed the children's bodies on the living room couch to appear as though they were sleeping. The children's great-aunt discovered the lifeless bodies and called 911. First responders arrived swiftly but found the children beyond help. Henry initially claimed she had put the children down for a nap and hadn't checked on them, but during police interviews, she admitted to the killings, mentioning she was under the influence of drugs and felt like she was losing her mind. In December 2024, Henry pleaded guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder. On February 14, 2025, she was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell expressed disbelief over the heinous acts committed by Henry, stating, "It's hard to comprehend how any parent could take the life of their own." This case serves as a somber reminder of the profound impact of mental health and substance abuse issues, emphasizing the importance of seeking help before such tragedies occur. So what do you think? Was this a fair ruling? This beautiful black woman, her name is Sonia, and she has just been shot by the people she called to help her scare off a prowler, who she believed was in her house.
Better fucking not, I swear to God, I'll fucking shoot you right in your fucking face.
Let's start from the beginning. Sonia Massey is a mother of 2, a 15-year-old daughter and a 17-year-old son. Massey is not together with her kid's dad, and supposedly they had some kind of shared custody. The 36-year-old woman, a resident of Springfield, Illinois, found herself in a situation that would tragically end her life. In the early hours of July 6, 2024, Sonia suspected there was an intruder in her home. Therefore, she dialed 911, seeking assistance from those sworn to protect. 2 deputies from the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office responded to her call. Upon their arrival, body camera footage reveals a calm interaction as they entered Massey's home. Inside, Deputy Sean Grayson noticed a pot of boiling water on the stove and commented on it. Massey, in response, moved to pour the water into the sink, during which she remarked, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." This statement, common in some communities as a form of spiritual expression, was misinterpreted by Grayson as a threat. He drew his firearm, shouting, "You better not, or I swear to God I'll shoot you in the face." Startled, Massey apologized and ducked behind the counter. Despite her non-threatening posture, Grayson fired 3 shots, one of which struck her fatally in the head. In the aftermath, as Massey lay mortally wounded, the other deputy on the scene suggested retrieving a medical kit to render aid. Grayson discouraged this, stating, "Nah, she's done. You can go get your kit, but that's a headshot." Nevertheless, the other deputy attempted to assist Massey until emergency services arrived. She was transported to a nearby hospital, where she was pronounced dead. Investigations into Grayson's background revealed a troubling history. Between 2020 and 2024, he had been employed by 6 different law enforcement agencies, often for brief periods. Prior to his law enforcement career, Grayson was discharged from the US Army in 2016 for misconduct, serious offense. Additionally, he had 2 DUI convictions from 2015 and 2016. Despite these red flags, he continued to find employment in various police departments. The shooting of Sonia Massey sparked widespread outrage and calls for justice. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump, representing Massey's family, emphasized the excessive use of force and the systemic issues within law enforcement. Prominent figures, including President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, condemned the incident, highlighting the urgent need for police reform and the passage of the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. In the legal proceedings that followed, Grayson was indicted on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, and official misconduct. He pleaded not guilty and was initially held without bond. However, an Illinois appellate court later ordered his pre-trial release, citing insufficient evidence that he posed a danger to the community. After a few months in court, the Sangamon County reached a $10 million settlement with Massey's family, acknowledging the profound loss and the need for systemic change. The county also agreed to implement reforms, including enhanced police training on de-escalation and mental health crises, aiming to prevent such tragedies in the future. In a virtual news conference, attorney Ben Crump said, "This is only the first step in the journey for justice." For more true crime stories like this one, please subscribe to our channel. In Caldwell, Idaho, a man named Dylan McKay Rockwell devised a cunning plan to outsmart Walmart's self-checkout system. His method? A homemade ring embedded with a barcode from a can of tomato soup. Rockwell would scan expensive items using the ring's barcode, tricking the system into registering the item at the soup's price of just 70 cents. But last Sunday, his unique scheme came to an end when Walmart employees noticed some discrepancy and alerted authorities. While police were en route to the scene, Rockwell exited the store and was heading westbound on Cleveland Boulevard in his vehicle, CPD said. However, they quickly located him at his residence, recovering the stolen merchandise worth over $300. During questioning, Rockwell confessed to multiple thefts using his ingenious ring. He now faces charges of felony burglary and misdemeanor petty theft. During a press conference, Chief Rex Ingram said, "Sorry, Mr. Rockwell, your tactics didn't work this time, but we appreciate your creativity. We know that times are tough, but your ingenuity got you some county soup for dinner." As of the day we created this video, Mr. Rockwell still is custody awaiting his day in court. This incident highlights the ongoing challenges retailers face with self-checkout systems and the innovative lengths individuals will go to exploit them. Retailers are continually updating security measures to combat such fraudulent activities.
This beautiful lady dancing her night out is Esther, and she doesn't know that she's about to be murdered in the worst way possible. Let me start from the beginning. Essie is a mother of 2, and on this day, everything started normal. Like usual, she arrived at home in the morning from work and joined her kids in bed. As promised, she spent the entire day with her kids playing around, cooking, and binge watching. At around 6 p.m., she prepared food for them, had dinner, and left them with the nanny before leaving for work as a prostitute. She hugged her kids before leaving, not knowing that it will be the last time she will get to hold them. Essie promised her young ones that she'll be back before they wake up and rushed into the darkness to her usual spot. Like most sex works, she had a strict routine which included her entering the local club and trying to get the attention of the drunk men. That day she entered a local pub around the area and started looking for a client. She joined her friends on the dance floor, and that's when she spotted a young man sipping his drink at the corner of the pub. The guy was well dressed, and she was immediately attracted to him. After doing everything to catch his attention, he finally invited her to his table and introduced himself as Phil. After a few drinks, Phil told her that he had a hotel room around the area, so they left together. The next day, a woman's body was discovered along Kanu Street, eyes gorged out and her private parts and breast chopped off. After further investigation, they discovered that it was Essie. Her once pretty face was peeled off, which made it hard for her friends and family members to identify her after they spotted the body. This murder forced the police to take notice, and after further investigation and pressure from human rights activists and other sex workers, they opened an investigation. A few days later, another body was found in a hotel room in town, which was connected to several other murders all over the country. The MO was similar to Essie's murder, with some victims' bodies being drained off blood. But by this time, Phil had moved to another city where he continued his murdering spree. Phil was caught a few weeks later in Nairobi, Kenya, after his attempt to kidnap, sexual assault, and murder. Another woman failed. The woman managed to escape and reported him to the cops, who caught up with him. The police caught him for attempted rape and kidnap, but during the interrogation, he confessed to a series of murders. His confession led the police to multiple crime scenes across the country, where he claimed to have committed the killings. The cops managed to uncover the remains of some of his victims. This helped them close some of their cold cases. In fact, he confessed to killing over 18 women and children. He also said that his target was killing and drinking the blood of 100 women and children. Here's the weird thing, though. Phil claims that he was never conscious when torturing and killing these women and children. According to the people close to him, he was shy, and he even claimed that he lacked the ability to charm women. But when the urge to kill comes to him, he always hears a voice instructing him on what to do. It even showed him who his next victim will be. He claimed that the voice once told him to leave his place of work and go to the neighboring town and commit murder. He didn't have cash, but at that point he found himself with enough cash for a room and bus fare. According to the police, Philip had been inducted into a cult while in high school by one of his teachers. He didn't understand what it meant at that point. Even after the school investigated these teachers, he didn't believe them. The teacher was caught, but she denied the allegation. After his first few kills, he felt guilty every time he had to go home to his wife and son. On top of that, he had no memory of what had happened. All he remembered is that he was never alone in the room and always wakes up next to a dead body. All in all, his capture saw the end of a series of murders of an unknown number of people all over the country. He was later charged for the attempted kidnap and jailed for 12 years while waiting for his other murder cases to be proven. In an interview with a local TV station, he said that he's safer in prison than outside. He is still in jail waiting for his murder cases and has been acquitted for 2 of them. So, what do you think? Is he crazy or just playing the system?
AI technology has had a huge impact on numerous industries. It has made work easier and helped revolutionize numerous industries. But one part of our lives that we didn't anticipate it to evolve is the scamming. Deep fake videos and photos have made it easier for scammers worldwide to steal from the people. A great example is the Brad Pitt love scam that featured in our previous story that saw a French woman loss over $850,000. While it has helped some criminals, artificial intelligence couldn't have helped the following thugs. After all, to plan and execute a successful heist, you need to be smarter than you are brave. In modern times, you need to be cunning enough to use everything at your disposal to your benefit. And some of these thugs may not be clever enough to take advantage of this technology. After all, they were caught in the stupidest and funniest ways possible. Here is our list of some of the stupidest criminals in history. Number 1. The Facebook burglar Nicholas Wigg. Nicholas Wigg, a Minnesota man, decided to break into a home in South St. Paul. Paul in 2014, hoping for a quick and easy burglary. Once inside, he successfully stole valuables, including credit cards and cash. But while inside, he made a bizarre mistake that eventually led to his capture. He found the homeowner's computer and logged into his personal Facebook account. Distracted by social media, Wigg browsed his newsfeed for a while before exiting the house. He even changed his clothes and left them there. However, in his hurry, he forgot to log out of Facebook before leaving. When the homeowner, James Wood, returned, he discovered the break-in and his missing belongings. However, what shocked him most was finding the burglar's Facebook profile still open on his computer. Thinking quickly, Wood used Wigg's account to send him a message pretending to offer a deal in exchange for some of his stolen clothes. Without thinking, Wigg accepted the offer and agreed to meet him for the exchange. When Wigg showed up at the meeting spot, the police were already there waiting for him. He was arrested on the spot, making this one of the dumbest criminal mistakes in history. During his trial, he pleaded guilty, and the judge sentenced him to 90 days in jail and 5 years of probation. Number 2, the selfie bandit, Jonathan Parker. Jonathan Parker, a burglar from West Virginia, broke into a home in 2016 and stole 2 diamond rings worth thousands of dollars. Instead of fleeing immediately, he decided to take a moment to log into his Facebook account, just like Nicholas Wigg, using the victim's laptop. Not only did he check his notifications, but he even took a selfie before leaving the crime scene. Feeling confident, he closed the laptop and left with the stolen goods. However, Parker forgot one crucial detail. He never logged out of Facebook. When the homeowner returned and saw his missing valuables, he also noticed an unfamiliar Facebook account still open on his laptop. The police were immediately alerted, and with Parker's profile, name and photos, officers tracked him down in no time. His decision to take a selfie at the crime scene made it one of the most laughable arrests ever. Number 3. The butt-dialing burglar, Nathan Teklemariam and Carson Reinhardt. Back in 2013, Nathan Teklemariam and Carson Reinhardt had just finished robbing a home in Fresno, California, when they hopped into their car and began discussing their next crime. As they drove, they talked in detail about what they had stolen, how much money they had made from numerous heists all over the city, and where they planned to strike next. Unbeknownst to them, one of the criminals had accidentally butt-dialed 911, leaving the emergency dispatcher listening in on their entire conversation. For 35 minutes, the dispatcher quietly recorded the 2 criminals talking about their crimes and their next target. Police officers were immediately dispatched to their location, using GPS to track their moving vehicle. The burglars were completely unaware that law enforcement was following them. Just as they were about to attempt another break-in, the police surrounded their car and arrested them, thanks to their own accidental confession. Or to our number 4, the fake cop who pulled over a real cop, 2011. Tyree Appleberry had always wanted to experience the power of being a police officer, so he took matters into his own hands. One evening, Tyree walked into a military surplus store and purchased a navy blue shirt, some tactical pants, and a cheap plastic badge from an online marketplace. With a fake police ID printed at a local library, he was ready. To complete the illusion, he found a used, decommissioned Crown Victoria, once a real patrol car, painted black and white. It didn't have lights or sirens, but it was enough to make people second guess. He started pulling over random drivers, pretending to be a cop. His plan worked for a while, as unsuspecting drivers obeyed his fake authority. However, his luck ran out when he unknowingly pulled over an undercover police officer. The real cop immediately noticed something was off and asked the fake officer for his badge and credentials. When the impersonator failed to provide any, he was quickly arrested. His attempt to fake his way into law enforcement ended in one of the most ironic arrests ever.
This beautiful French woman, her name is Anne, and she's in love with Brad Pitt. Unfortunately, this love is going to cost her $865,000. Let's start from the beginning. Anne is 53 and married to a millionaire. Unfortunately, she is lonely as her marriage is on the rocks. After years of being married, they have finally decided to file for a divorce, which has left her lonely and no one to turn to. But one day she gets a message on Instagram from a lady known as Jane. Jane is an older woman who understands what she's going through, so they get to chatting, get to know each other over a couple of weeks. After learning more about Anne's loveless marriage, Jane tells her that she has a son and believes that they would make a great couple. But here's the thing. Jane's son happens to be this guy. Yes, Brad Pitt. Jane shares her son's photo, and Anne sees that he's handsome and exactly what she needs, so she asks for his digits. The two start chatting, sending selfies, and get even more intimate. Brad seems like a perfect escape from her lonely life, so it's easy to understand why she falls in love with him quickly and their texts becomes more romantic. Jane's son keeps sending Anne love messages, love poems, and sexy photos. Up to this time, they have never talked. In fact, they only chat via texts every day. Anne yearns for his voice, but Brad comes up with excuses every time. At one point, he'll tell her he's on a movie set and can't talk. Knowing how movie stars are busy, especially when on set, Anne understands and settles for texts. Finally, Anne gets what she wanted when one day out of the blues, Brad Pitt proposes to her via texts. After her failed marriage, Anne is excited to finally get back on the horse and she says yes. After all, who can say no to Brad Pitt? Here's the thing though, Jane's son isn't really Brad Pitt. It's a bunch of scammers trying a love scam on her. But Anne is in love and can't see that she's being scammed. Plus, she doesn't know anything about the deep fakes, which makes it easier for the scammers who are believed to be Rom Nigeria to play with her emotions. One day, Anne wakes up to a beautiful message from the love of her life, who wants to send her some luxury gifts. He sends her a photo of some expensive perfumes, jewelries, clothes, and other accessories, which he has purchased and sent to her. After a few days, Anne gets an email from a shipping company claiming that her parcel has delayed due to an import tax of about $5,000. Anne texts Brad and asks, why can't he pay the import tax? After all, he is a multimillionaire movie star. Brad texts her claiming that his bank accounts have been frozen due to her publicized divorce from Angelina Jolie. Funny enough, Anne believes him and she pays the tax, but her gifts don't arrive. When she asks, Brad says that they may have gotten lost while in transit. Brad continues asking cash from her, coming up with many excuses, and she keeps sending him cash. At this point, her